Welcome to News Today, a PodNu service. Today is Friday, March 18, 2022, Central European Time. St. Patrick's Day celebrations across the country are back after a 2-year break, including the largest in New York City. This is a sign that the worst of the coronavirus pandemic may be over, and it's a good thing. In 2020, parades celebrating Irish heritage were the first big public events to be called off because of the outbreak. An alarming rise in infections quickly led to a lot of people getting sick and having to go home. When the full-scale return of New York's parade came back on Thursday, it was the same time as the city's wider reopening. Recently, a lot of rules about how to wear masks and get vaccinated were changed, so now the city's famous Fifth Avenue was covered in green as hordes of people took to the streets for the first time in 2 years to take part in the celebration. A 65-year-old woman named Kathy Brusha says she's been to the parade every year except for the last 2. The pandemic, she said. I don't think it's over. But I think a lot of people feel like, wow, we could finally go to a parade and not worry. But I think everybody has to worry, she said as the first marching band passed by Thursday morning. I love St. Patrick's Day. It's one of my favorite holidays, said Brusha, who is Irish and was clad in green, including a shamrock on her cheek. The day held great importance for a city still reeling from the outbreak. Psychologically, it means a lot, said Sean Lane, the chair of the parade's organizing group. New York really needs this. The city's entertainment and nightlife scenes have particularly welcomed the return to a normal St. Patrick's Day party. This is the best thing that happened to us in 2 years, said Mike Carty, the Ireland-born owner of Rosie O'Grady's, a restaurant and pub in the Theatre District. We need the business, and this really kicked it off, said Carty, who will be hosting the parade's Grand Marshal after the procession. Celebrations came back to other cities, too, like New York. People in Savannah, Georgia, have been celebrating St. Patrick's Day for more than 200 years. Parades have been held there by Irish immigrants and their descendants since 1824. Holidays like this one have been a big moneymaker for Savannah for almost 2 centuries now. Hundreds of thousands of people who were still thirsty after Mardi Gras come to the city for a party on the streets. Tori Purvis, 46, and her 3-year-old son, Tristan, were there early in the morning to get a spot near the start of the parade. Tristan was still in his pajamas, but they had been decorated with leprechaun hats and rainbows. Since she was a child, Purvis has celebrated St. Patrick's Day in Savannah every year. The only years she doesn't remember going were in 2020 and 2021, when the pandemic forced the parade to be cancelled, but she still goes every year. I'm not against masks or anything, but it's nice to see people outside without masks and enjoying their time, Purvis said. It's like a little bit of normalcy is coming back. Over the weekend, Chicago turned its river green again, after doing so last year without much fanfare and not doing it at all during the first wave of the virus. Boston, which is home to one of the country's largest Irish communities, is going to start its annual parade again on Sunday after 2 years off. Some communities in Florida, which was one of the first states to get its economy back on track, were also putting on parades again. When Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was in office, he closed down restaurants, bars, and nightclubs on St. Patrick's Day 2 years ago, which was a big move for the Republican and showed how scared and uncertain people were at the time. He has been one of the most outspoken people in the country against mask and vaccine mandates, as well as other pandemic measures, since then. The largest and oldest parade in the world, New York's runs 35 blocks down Fifth Avenue, past St. Patrick's Cathedral and through Central Park. It was first held in 1762. If you live in New York City, you might want to go to this event. It's being held as the city comes out of the Omicron variant, which killed more than 4,000 people in New York City between January and February this year. The number of infections and hospitalizations has dropped since the surge, which led city officials to let the procession go ahead. During the last few days before the holiday, Mayor Eric Adams raised the Irish flag in a park on the southern tip of Manhattan, not far from Ellis Island. This was to remember the city's rich Irish history. This St. Patrick's Day, we honor those Irish immigrants who relocated and helped build our city, and the many Irish Americans who serve New York City to this day, the mayor said. Today, we celebrate the fighting spirit of the Irish with the courage and resilience of this entire city. If you want to eat inside at a restaurant in New York right now, you don't need to show that you have been vaccinated. A lot of people still wear masks in public and avoid big crowds. 2 years have passed since the pandemic, when there were only small parades. This year, there will be a big parade for the first time in 2 years. A small parade was held at sunrise on St. Paddy's Day, in 2020 and 2021, when the streets were mostly empty, to keep the tradition going. It was a small group of officials and a few other people who were attracted to the music. In this year's parade, a lot of people came even though many people in New York City are afraid of big, potentially virus-infecting public events. For more than just the holiday, organizers hope people will come to show their support for a group of Ukrainian marchers who want to raise awareness about the war in their country.